Hello everyone, welcome back for another episode of the Microsoft Today podcast. Today's episode is being recorded on February 6th and is covering a flurry of Microsoft news and announcements, including Microsoft's quarterly earnings, Skype, AI, a surprising Microsoft Education acquisition, keeping kids safe, a programming contest, Azure, a plethora of Xbox news, and more. But before we dive into the show, I have a few things to discuss with you. And the first thing is another huge resounding thank you. Thank you to everyone who has listened to the podcast, subscribed to the podcast, shared it, shared our tweets, retweeted, followed us, all of those sorts of things, visited the website. It has been an overwhelming success. We've had thousands and thousands and thousands of viewers and visitors and interactions, and so thank you so very much. Without you guys, I would not be doing this, so thank you for keeping me motivated by being engaging and taking part in the community and interacting with me and all the news that we're sharing. With that said, I'm happy to announce that we're finally on TuneIn Radio. It took us about 4 weeks to get on TuneIn Radio, but it was by far the most requested platform that we wanted our podcast to be on, and we are on TuneIn. We still have a couple to go, but for now, we're on about 18 different platforms now, and you can subscribe to the RSS, and you can find those all at msft.today. So with that housekeeping out of the way, let's dive into the big Microsoft stories of the week. Up first, we're going to discuss Microsoft's earnings. Microsoft reported their quarter 2 earnings last week, where they recorded $32.5 billion for the quarter. Microsoft's revenue highlights from the quarter were Microsoft's gaming revenue was up 8% year over year during the second quarter, with revenue from Xbox software and services rising 31% over that same period. That's pretty great growth for Xbox. Surface had its biggest quarter ever this holiday season, delivering strong double-digit growth in both consumer and commercial spaces, according to Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. So as Microsoft has expanded the hardware platform of Surface, including Surface headphones now, the Surface brand just keeps getting stronger. There aren't any major Surface announcements on the board for the next quarter, but you have to think that the Surface Book 3 should be coming out sometime this summer. The third highlight from their revenue was Microsoft's cloud growth exploded, as commercial cloud revenue was up 48% year over year, anchored by Azure revenue growth of 76%. So Microsoft's cloud-first vision is paying off. Satya Nadella's cloud-first, you can't doubt it at this point. They beat analysts' expectations nearly across the board, including earnings of $1.08 per share, revenues of $32.5 billion total revenues, and then intelligent cloud revenue of $9.38 billion, which is Azure. Microsoft touted this week that their quarter 2 earnings were inspired and powered by their partners. In the post on their Microsoft partner blog, their IP co-sell partner revenue has crossed $8 billion, which is quite huge. That means that their enterprise services division is still making tons of money, obviously, but they are relying on their partners and their whole MSP redesign. Their IP co-seller partner revenue has crossed $8 billion. That's staggering. They had more than 7,500 partners join the ecosystem each month. That's nearly 100,000 partners for the year. Partner transactions via CSPs grew 31% in the past year. And their partner transactions via CSP served more than 2 million customers, a 52% increase over the past 12 months. So Microsoft restructured their CSP, so their cloud service provider model. Their partners basically that host and serve their cloud kind of like white label it. They redid that about a year ago, making it more costly to get in, but I think at that time they were able to ensure that their cloud partners that they engage with were providing a better overall product. And so those cloud service providers are generally allowing smaller cloud partners to utilize their services and resell and white label with them. 95% of Microsoft's commercial revenue flows through their partners. That is staggering. 95% of Microsoft's commercial revenue flows through their partners. I'd have to dive deeper into this, but I'm thinking that's across their services revenue. So Microsoft is pushing medium and small businesses towards the CSPs, while they're keeping probably the enterprise agreements through their services division. And so rather than Microsoft focus on the small customer, they're pushing people through their Microsoft partner. It's business as usual, and they've been doing that for decades, but with the cloud, there was always kind of this gray area because people were able to become CSPs really, really easy, or cloud service providers. And since they've made that more difficult, those cloud service providers are generally much larger companies, so they themselves are enterprises, and then they sell to medium and small businesses. Microsoft said, as a customer-first, partner-led company, they start with the needs of their customers and work with their partners to deliver the outcomes for each organization. So if you're a Microsoft partner, you have to feel great about the fact that Microsoft is relying on you to provide the vast majority of their commercial sales. Moving on from revenue, we're just going to have a small conversation about Skype. So I'm not sure if you guys have used Microsoft Teams in the past, but Microsoft Teams has had, whenever you've done video chatting, it's had the ability to automatically blur your background. So if you're working in a public space or you're working in an office building and you don't want people to be able to see what's behind you while you're on a video conference, that's been built into Microsoft Teams for some time. They have now rolled that out to Skype, which is a great feature. So I know I've used this personally for Microsoft Teams many times, but there's also times whenever I use Skype, whether it's recording for this podcast or having chats with folks at like a coffee shop and things like that. I may not want people to know where I am, and it may want to look more professional than maybe the background does at that time. I work from home quite often, so I love the fact that Microsoft Teams, I can just blur my background. People have no idea where I am at, and so it's cool to see that coming to Skype. If you head to msft.today and or read the show note, in the show notes is a link to that article where it discusses the Skype settings and the instant blur background. You can get a better understanding of how that's come to Skype. Next up, we're going to talk about AI, or artificial intelligence, and Microsoft's belief of core values and principles for exploring ethics and trust within AI. Rather than me talk about something that I'm familiar with but not an expert on, I'm going to rely on the experts here from Microsoft, and that includes Chalen Arkan, the global lead of manufacturing and resource industry, and Nick Silas, senior attorney of the manufacturing and resource industries at Microsoft. In a conversation found on the Microsoft Cloud YouTube channel, Exploring Ethics and Trust in AI with Microsoft covers the 6 AI design principles that Microsoft find to be key to developing ethics and trust in AI.
I am joined here today by Nick Silas, our senior attorney for manufacturing and growth industries here at Microsoft. Nick, welcome to the discussion.
Thank you, Charlie-Ann. It's my pleasure.
Nick, as useful as AI is, we at Microsoft must be realistic about the challenges that AI will also raise. We do not believe that we can afford to look at this AI future with uncritical eyes, really. Microsoft has spent a lot of time thinking about how to design and deliver AI in a way that is responsible.
You are absolutely correct, Charlie-Ann.
Essentially, with AI, we're now empowering computers to make decisions that have previously been made by us, humans. And so as computers behave more like humans, it is important to think about the impact they will have on people and the ethics that should underpin AI. Because every ethical question that has ever been faced by humanity is now an ethical question that we need to think about in relation to computing. Can you tell us more about what Microsoft is doing to guide the development and deployment of AI around an ethical framework?
Ultimately, for AI to be trustworthy, we believe it must be human-centered, meaning designed in a way that augments human ingenuity and capabilities. Designing AI to be trustworthy also requires creating solutions that reflect ethical principles that are deeply rooted in important and timeless values. As we've thought about it, we focused on 6 design principles that we believe should guide the development of AI. Specifically, AI systems should treat all people fairly. They should be inclusive to empower and engage everyone. They should perform reliably and safely and be transparent. They should be secure and respect privacy. And lastly, they should have an algorithmic accountability to prevent unintended harm.
These principles are really critical, Nick, to addressing the societal impacts of AI and building trust as the technology becomes more and more a part of the products and services that people use at work and at home every day.
Yes, ultimately, these 6 principles need to be integrated into ongoing operations if they're to be effective.
Because that clip pretty much gives you the gist of what's going on in this discussion, I'm going to cut it off there, but I highly recommend that you check out the show notes at msft.today/podcast, where I've linked to this video and this discussion, which is a little bit over 10 minutes. Also, this is similar to a Microsoft research webinar that I attended last month called Machine Learning and Fairness with Jen Wortman-Vaughan and Hannah Wallach. And basically within that webinar, they discussed how machine learning and AI can show biases, including, I'm not sure if you guys remember, but whenever Amazon did some machine learning and AI to pick candidates to interview for jobs, it heavily skewed male. Those are the types of things that Microsoft's trying to program into AI and machine learning to ensure that the results fairly represent everyone. This includes women, men, minorities, LGBTQ community, etc., etc. So while many in the industry keep sounding the alarm about AI and the boogeyman's coming and we're going to have sentient beings and that sort of rhetoric, it's good to know that Microsoft and others within the AI space are performing their due diligence from the beginning to ensure that the AI and machine learning algorithms that they do build are doing it the right way from the outset. And this leads me into another subject from the Msft.today website from this week, guidelines for human AI interaction design. And so not only are they trying to ensure that AI is making the right decisions, they're trying to ensure that through AI-centric design heuristics and guidelines, that it is also properly interacting with human beings, with the overall goal of creating more intuitive and effective user experiences. So from top to bottom in every angle, Microsoft is building a framework and recommendations for how to properly build AI. And now we're moving on from AI and heading to education and Microsoft's education initiatives. We've discussed in previous podcasts how much Microsoft is investing within the education space. We spent an entire over 1 hour episode on the Microsoft education space, including things like Microsoft EDU, Minecraft EDU, OneNote in the classroom, Skype in the classroom, Flipgrid, etc., etc. Well, now Microsoft is upping their game once more to help separate themselves from Google and others in the space. This past week, they announced that they acquired DataSense. DataSense was technology from BrightBytes, B-R-I-G-H-T, B-Y-T-E-S, and DataSense, all one word, D-A-T-A-S-E-N-S-E, will be part of their Azure cloud platform for education. In short, DataSense is a data management platform that can be used to collect, integrate, and report information from across a range of online education applications and services. So basically, this will be their Azure insights educators can look into and report on and view what is being successful within their education space. So they can know whenever they're struggling or one thing's not performing well enough, they can either move on to another initiative or they can try to revamp that initiative and build it up to where it needs to be so it does get the adoption and the success rates that it does. DataSense is a master platform that's used by schools and educational authorities both to ingest information as well as report it to the state and other authorities. Even before Microsoft acquired it, it already had tremendous reach, being used to manage data from millions of students in the US. BrightBytes was not part of the acquisition. They sold the DataSense intellectual property to Microsoft. It is unknown if Microsoft is going to rebrand DataSense or just loop DataSense into their Microsoft EDU efforts, but you have to think that they're going to add it to the Azure platform as soon as they can. Again, especially as we have a new school year approaching fast, they're going to try to get more Microsoft EDU 365 tenants out there. And like Flipgrid before it, DataSense will likely simply be added to the Microsoft EDU suite of products without an additional cost. Again, Microsoft's goal is to be a differentiator from the other competitors in the education space. Next up, we're going to discuss keeping kids safe in a digital world with Windows 10 and Xbox family settings. This came up on the Msft.today website this week, and I thought it would be great to share for those that aren't sure. But Microsoft builds in safeguards for children and families at Microsoft.com/family. Utilizing these safeguards, you can set permissions for games or app purchases, enable safe browsing on the web, manage screen time, and more. So if you have a family and your kids can't put Fortnite down, or you can't get them to turn off the Xbox or stop browsing the web, check out Microsoft.com/family. These family settings are built in automatically to Windows 10 and Xbox. It works across all platforms without issue. And I've actually set this up for my family. I don't have children, but for my nieces and nephews, they weren't very happy about it. And so this even extends to mobile. If you have Android devices, utilize Microsoft Launcher. It's a free download, and Microsoft Launcher has those family controls built right into it. And you can even lock down family controls within the Microsoft Launcher to ensure that they can't add or remove certain features from Microsoft Launcher. I actually use Microsoft Launcher every day for my Android, and I can't recommend it enough. If you have an Android, and even if you don't have a family that you want to use these family features on, I highly recommend the Microsoft Launcher. I've just scratched the surface of all the features for the Microsoft family. There's also things like game sharing and linking Xbox Live accounts that I'm not even getting into. So just head to Microsoft.com/family or check out the show notes for full details, including download links to the Microsoft Launcher for Android. And now for developers, I want to mention the Applied F# Challenge, which is being brought to you by the F# Software Foundation. The F# Foundation is challenging F# developers to post and or share code projects and code examples for things like F# for machine learning and data science, F# for distributed systems, F# in the cloud, including web, serverless containers, etc., F# for desktop and mobile, F# in your organization or domain, including healthcare, finance, games, retail, etc., F# and open source development, F# for IoT and hardware programming, F# in research, including quantum, bioinformatics, security, etc., and then out-of-the-box F# topics, including scenarios, applications, and examples. All participants will receive F# stickers, and participants with winning submissions in each category will also receive the title of a recognized F# expert by the F# Software Foundation and a special non-monetary prize. So that's the really cool thing and why I brought this up. You will literally be titled as a recognized F# expert by the F# Software Foundation if you submit an idea or code sample and are recognized as the winner within that category. That's pretty cool. Like, to have that on your resume, you can be like a technical fellow at Microsoft or something along those lines. You are literally a recognized F# expert. And so while F# isn't really well known within the realm of most developers or most casual IT personnel, it is growing, and this is cool to see that the F# Software Foundation are putting things in motion to hopefully grow F# as a whole. I want to know if anybody out there enters. Please share that with me at Msft Today or at Brad Grew on Twitter. I'd love to see what you submit, and I'd like to share that if possible. And if you become a recognized F# expert, just remember Msft Today when you're famous. Seriously, if you become a recognized F# expert, or if you submit to this and you want to be a guest on the podcast, hit us up. Now we're going to pivot away from developing an F# and head to Azure Data Studio. So Azure Data Studio was previously released under the preview name SQL Operations Studio, and it offers a modern editor experience with IntelliSense, code snippets, source control integration, and an integrated terminal. It is engineered with the data platform user in mind, with built-in charting of query result sets and customizable dashboards. Basically, Azure Data Studio is a cross-platform database tool for data professionals using the Microsoft family of on-premises and cloud data platforms on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. So as we've seen with Visual Studio Code, Microsoft is kind of revamping their tools from the ground up with a cross-platform design. And Azure Data Studio is kind of killing off SQL Management Studio and before it, the SQL Operations Studio under preview. And so again, they're trying to become OS agnostic and technology agnostic, where you're utilizing these tool sets regardless of the platform you're on. So this is a fantastic application and initiative within Microsoft. If you head to the show notes, there's the full story that gives you the full background of the Azure Data Studio and gives you a direct download to download and install Azure Data Studio. It actually steps you through the process of downloading and installing Azure Data Studio and then connecting to your data sources. And building off of the Microsoft Azure Data Studio and the other Azure news within this podcast, I want to mention that you can sign up for 12 months of free services and $200 credit to explore any Azure service for 30 days or work with 25 plus services that are always free with Azure. If you head to the show notes, again, within the show notes, there's a link for how you can sign up for a free Azure account, which gives you access to 25 plus services that are always free, and then it gives you $200 worth of credit to explore Azure at your leisure for the entire month. So if you want to toy around and learn some more about Azure, check out the Microsoft Azure free credits at msft.today/podcast. And just to let you know, there are no affiliate links or anything within an Azure free trial or free $200. It's just I would like you all, if you have interest in Azure, to go try it out and check it out. And finally, to end the podcast, we're going to have a flurry of Xbox and Microsoft-related gaming news that came out this week. First off, we're going to talk about the fact that Microsoft Studios, or Microsoft Game Studios as you may have known it, is no more. It is now Xbox Game Studios. And Microsoft's reason for changing the name from Microsoft Studios to Xbox Game Studios is because Xbox Live is much, much bigger than just Xbox, the hardware. Xbox is a platform now. Xbox is going to continue to bleed over into other areas of technology, including Windows 10. And it was recently discovered this week and spotted by Windows Central that Xbox Live is about to join other platforms too, including Nintendo Switch, Android, and iOS. Xbox Live is expanding from 400 million gaming devices and a reach to over 68 million active players to over 2 billion devices with the release of their new cross-platform XDK. So Android games, iOS games, Nintendo Switch games, literally anyone who probably wants to utilize this XDK can utilize the Xbox Live platform and services for features like achievements and cross-platform gameplay. Also yesterday, Microsoft announced the Halo Outpost Discovery. The Halo Outpost Discovery is a touring fan experience for all ages that brings the Halo video game universe to life like never before. The weekend-long event lets you step inside Halo's vast and epic world with enthralling themed attractions, interactive in-universe encounters, the latest playable game releases, and so much more. So basically, they're building a fan experience for Halo that's a traveling roadshow. If you'd like to meet the Microsoft Today crew and myself, Brad Grew, along with my 3 nephews, we're going to squad up and head out to the Saturday, August 17th Halo Outpost Discovery in Houston, Texas. This seems like a really cool thing for the people who are geeked out about Halo. Basically, it is a Halo experience that you can go and sit in a Warthog and play some VR and play some laser tag and buy some Halo merch and just become Master Chief for a day if you'd like. You have to think that if this is successful, that they'll expand it to worldwide and other cities across the globe, because it can be a traveling roadshow that can make money like so many other traveling roadshows, like Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Yeah, that was a reference to monster trucks. And to round out the Xbox news, we're going to talk about Crackdown. Crackdown for Xbox 360 is now available for free at Xbox.com. Microsoft says they're releasing the original Crackdown for free to celebrate the launch of Crackdown 3 next week. So if you have an Xbox One, you've never played Crackdown, it's actually a great game. It's kind of like you're a superhero, but GTA mixed. And it actually holds up and plays really well on the backwards compatibility. I've owned it already, and I've been playing it many, many times. So if you've never played Crackdown 1 and you want to prepare for Crackdown 3 next week, download the Crackdown original for free. And so, speaking of Crackdown 3, there is a Crackdown 3 technical stress test this weekend. So beginning Thursday, February 7th, you can install the Wrecking Zone technical test on either Xbox or PC, where you can play Crackdown 3's groundbreaking PvP multiplayer mode, Wrecking Zone. For those who haven't seen the technical specs and the technical magic that's happening in the multiplayer of Crackdown, it uses Azure to offload compute. So the entire world within Crackdown is destructible. And that means you can knock down every building with your bazookas or rocket launchers, and whoever you're playing with can do that. And so whenever you're utilizing Xbox Live, you're not only just connecting to people with network, you're utilizing Azure compute. So not only is your Xbox crunching data with its memory and CPU, so is Azure. And this is why it took Crackdown so long to become released, is because Microsoft is using it kind of as a proof of concept for other games to use this in the future. And this is why I think things like 4K VR are not that far off from Xbox, because they'll be able to utilize the power of Azure to do offloading for compute. Just think of it kind of like the old in the 70s and 80s when computers were terminals, and so it was literally just displaying the information on the screen, local dummy terminal. Just think of Azure compute for gaming very much the same. And so all the heavy lifting is done by the massive server farms sitting in the cloud rather than the little tiny black box under your TV. And so regardless of the reception for Crackdown 3, know the technology behind it and the stress test that's going to happen this weekend is going to give Microsoft a ton of insight how they can scale and burst back down Azure compute for their customers. And this is going to, and the information they capture from Crackdown 3 as it's spread out globally with millions of players across the world, just think of the data insights they'll learn from Azure and the cloud that they can pass back down through the entire Azure stack and maybe learn from better ways to improve the performance of Azure as a whole. So Crackdown 3 is much, much more than just a video game. Because of this burst compute technology powered by Azure, I've been following the development of Crackdown 3 really, really closely since about 2015 when the first technical demo was shown. And they actually showed within the demo how many Azure VMs you were utilizing within that demo as you destroyed these buildings. And so I would love to see how they've evolved it over the last 4 years. And so if there's anybody from the the Xbox Game Studio who's worked on Crackdown 3 who would like to be on the podcast and just talk geek for an hour about the power behind Crackdown 3 and the Azure compute offloading, I'd love to have you on. Please reach out to me at MSFT today or at Brad Grew. I think that'd be a fantastic thing to talk about from a scalability perspective, just how much power you guys are throwing at a video game from Azure compute and why the information you gain from that improves far more than just Xbox. And the last thing I want to mention for the podcast is that the video game Astroneer has graduated from the Xbox Game Preview. I've been an early backer for Astroneer, Astroneer, for more than a year and a half now. And basically, Astroneer is a space sandbox and exploration game. It's kind of like Minecraft in space. And so if you like Minecraft, if you like that puzzle and exploration type where you have to build your way off of a planet and build a spacecraft, like Kerbal Space Program and games like that, then Astroneer, I can highly, highly, highly recommend it. I think it's like $20, and it's Xbox Play Anywhere, so you can play it on your Windows 10 PC, or you can play it on your Xbox One, and it's just a really, really fun game. It's really great for, I think, students and children as they learn problem solving and exploration, just like Minecraft. Anyone who can learn from Minecraft can learn from Astroneer as well, because it requires manufacturing and resource gathering and exploration, and I highly recommend Astroneer. If you haven't played it, check out Astroneer on Xbox Live. And in closing, I just want to mention again the Microsoft Today website. msft.today is your one-stop shop for all official Microsoft news and announcements. We've curated hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of resources from Microsoft, where we've posting the latest news and resources from within Microsoft, and we're adding more and more every day. In the few weeks that the website has been up, we've accumulated more than 900 articles in one centralized place. But we're not really stopping there. We're also launching msft.tv, msft.support, and msft.university within the coming weeks. Look for a centralized place in MSF TV where you can find all of the video resources for Microsoft technologies. msft.support is what it sounds like. Support resources for Microsoft technologies. Everything from Windows Server to Windows 10 PCs to formatting your hard drive. The list will go on for msft.support. And MSFT University is going to be a centralized learning hub where we take in all of the resources for how you can learn and track your progress for learning for Microsoft products and services. And so not just things from official Microsoft sources, but things from sources like LinkedIn Learning or Pluralsight or Code Academy or all of the various learning resources that build learning tools and learning platforms for Microsoft. We also plan on utilizing Flipgrid within MSFT University. So if you'd like to learn how to use Flipgrid and know what your kids are getting in when they're utilizing Flipgrid in the classroom, you'll be able to see yourself from msft.university. It's going to take some time to roll out these initiatives as we're still building out msft.today and then also putting out 1 to 2 podcasts per week. But just know that we'll be working continuously to get all 4 of these platforms out as soon as possible. And those will all flow through msft.today, and they're already linked across the top of the screen if you go to msft.today. So just know that msft.today will be your single pane of glass to know where you need to go for all things Microsoft. I'd also like to point out that the entire msft.today ecosystem, which includes TV, university, and support, are released under Creative Commons and they are ad-free. There are no ads on any of those websites, or there won't be on any of those websites. msft.today does have a link to Patreon. So if you'd like to support us through Patreon, please do so. Just head to msft.today. Just head to msft.today, and on the right side is an orange Patreon link. And just click that, and it takes you to our Patreon. And then there is also an Amazon affiliate link. So if you'd like to support us, just right under that Patreon is an Amazon affiliate link. Just click that Amazon affiliate link whenever you're going to go shopping at Amazon. And it costs you nothing, and you're going to shop at Amazon anyways. It just gives us affiliate rewards for doing so. And so hopefully that'll help us cover the costs of supporting and building out these platforms. These platforms do utilize paid solutions to actually build them, like a learning management solution or LMS. They do utilize hosting on Azure, and so the servers are actually hosted on Azure, which isn't cheap and isn't free, but we want to make sure that we have a robust solution and we practice what we preach, right? So we're learning about Azure, and so that's why we've chosen Azure for our support. And so I'd like to break even at some point for the hosting costs and for the production costs of this podcast. So if you'd like to support us, head to the website msft.today and check out that Patreon link or the Amazon link, or just visit patreon.com/msfttoday. Thank you so much as we wrap up this podcast. Forward to a podcast like this every week where we highlight the big news from the week, and then the second podcast from the week will be on a singular subject and or interview. And so we have interviews lined up over the next coming weeks. I am on vacation the rest of the weekend, but look for 2 episodes again next week. Hopefully I will have an interview lined up with a Microsoft product manager. Stay tuned for that. Please follow msft.today on Twitter. If you enjoy this podcast, please tell one friend about it this week and have them subscribe. And if you're not subscribed, I hope you subscribe too. So with that said, I'm going to leave you with this final message. Finally, Microsoft fans, I'm here to call you to action. For too long, we've been inundated and attacked with misinformed, misguided, and ignorant news and coverage about Microsoft. Well, to that, I say no more. With your help, we can defeat the ignorant and lift up the technologically oppressed by spreading the word about Microsoft, their products, and their people the right way. So I challenge you today to stand up for the technologically oppressed and help spread the word about Microsoft today. Subscribe to this podcast and share it with your family, friends, and colleagues. Write a 5-star review on iTunes, support it on Patreon, and follow Microsoft Today on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I can't do this alone, but with your help and God willing, we can come together to defeat the tyranny of misinformation. Until next time, Microsoft fans, good luck on the battlefield in your fight against ignorance, and Godspeed.
From Milan,